Welcome to sections 1.6 and 1.7. We're moving further on in chapter 1. And as you can see, we have 5 new objectives, some of which are going to be familiar to you, and there is also going to be some vocabulary based upon our current book that you are going to need to know. Now, we're going to begin with what is an exponent and knowing what the parts of an exponent are. Now, in mathematics, an exponent is a mathematical shorthand. It's a quick way of writing the multiplication of the same numbers, which is another way of saying we're dealing with what we call repeated multiplication. As you see within the circle, we could write 4 of those 3's out. Now, how do I know to write them 4? Well, you see this little 4 that's up at the top? That 4 is known as a superscript. And it tells me how many times I need to write the base, which is the bigger number, 3. And also, notice how we read this. It is the base, or the bigger number, to the 4th power. And the reason it's 4th is that's the number in the superscript position. Now, that's if we have an exponent that is bigger than 3. We have some specific vocabulary words for an exponent that's 2, an exponent that's 3. Okay. Well, if the value of the exponent or the superscript number is 2, and down here I'm going to give you an example. I have 3 with the 2 in the exponent position. When I read this, this is 3 squared, because the question mark is the base, which is 3, and that can be any number. I just picked 3 to make life easy. But if the exponent or superscript is 2, we say the base is squared. Now, we can also use an exponent or superscript of 3, such as, here's my number 4, and see what's in the superscript position? This is known as 4 cubed. The 4 is our base. And the superscript, because it's the number 3, is said cubed. Okay. Now, knowing these pieces of vocabulary, we're now going to give you some directions as to how to solve certain problems in this section. Well, I want you to pay close attention to the directions here. Write as repeated multiplication. Well, I'm going to let you know that we have A. The key is right here, that superscript. That is my exponent. Now, there's 2 ways we're going to do this. Now, it can be A dot A dot A dot A. Now, notice we're using the dots, and there's 4 A's. Now, we can also, because we have 4 as a superscript, we can create parentheses. And inside each of these parentheses, can you guess what we're going to put inside? We're going to put in the letter A. Now, we either use the dot or the parentheses, because if we use the X symbol, which you probably have learned was multiplication, it gets confusing because some people have trouble believing that it's A times A times A times A. They would write AX 4 times. Well, that's not what the X is meaning. So therefore, in algebra, it's either the dot or the parentheses. Now the same thing happens here. Notice that we have this exponent up here. That's my 6. That means I am writing 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. Or again, I can create 6 parentheses. And inside each parentheses, I put the number 5. Now this is what it means when you write as repeated multiplication. You write as repeated multiplication. They're not asking you to give you an answer. They just want you to show, going backwards, given an exponent, what does it mean? Okay. Now, we're going to do the opposite. Now this time, notice what it's saying. Write in exponential form. Okay, this means that you are going to take this base of 3, because that's the number that's repeating. But how many times does 3 repeat? 7, which means in exponential form, 3 with the superscript of 7 is what I get. Now, B, some people have a little trouble with this because it's numbers and letters. Well, first off, we have 5 3 times and Y 2 times. This is our exponential form, and normally we put the number in front of the letter. Letters always come last. Okay. Now, some people get this one, problem C, confused because they're saying exponential form. Yeah. To write a number that does not show a superscript number, it is the superscript number is always 1. Because how many times do you see the 4 in problem C? Just once. So the exponential form will be 4. And yes, I do have to put that 1 up there because of these instructions. That's the exponential form. But normally, do we write that 1? No, because it's understood. And you will learn through this course that there are 2 numbers that can be understood: zeros and ones. So, we were told on the last slide to write repeated multiplication. Well, now we're going to go the opposite. Write in exponential form. And now here comes the third part. This is asking you to evaluate. Now, I do want you to know that sometimes it will say simplify each expression. The words simplify and evaluate are going to mean the same thing. Now, in order to solve this, okay, to evaluate or simplify, you must write or think what is the repeated multiplication for the problem. Well, that's the catch. To evaluate or simplify, you must write or think what is the repeated multiplication. Well, in problem number 1, this is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. You have to write it out, or you got to think, how many 3's do I have? I have 4 3's. Well, now to evaluate, I multiply out. 3 times 3 is 9, times a third 3 is 27, times 3 is 81. This is our simplified or evaluated answer. Okay. Now the same thing happens with 2, except this time it's 5 times 5 times 5. You have to write or think what this exponent 5 with the superscript of 3 means. It means you're multiplying, repeated multiplication, which is 5 times 5, which is 25, that's the second 5, times 5 is 125. This is my evaluated or simplified answer. Now, I want you to know that these 2 problems have numbers. But are you always going to have numbers? Nope. Just like this next problem. And notice I was really nice and gave you some steps in case you wish to use them. It is saying P with a superscript of 3. Well, that's meaning I have 3 P's. That means I have P times P times P. That's what this means. Well, notice step number 1. It says replace each variable. Well, that's trying to tell you that what I'm doing is I am taking each P and I'm going to replace it with a parentheses. Then, within each parentheses, I am going to place the value. Well, what's the value that we're looking at? 1P is the number 3, which means inside here, I have 3. I have 3, 3, 3. Now evaluate. You multiply all of the bases from all of the parentheses, which is 3 times 3 times 3, or 27. Now, some people can actually see I have three P's and know it's 3 times 3 times 3. But you may find out that if you have trouble with this one, write it out. Okay. Now we're also going to translate using some words that we talked about in a couple of prior slides. Now notice it's saying to translate. It's not asking us to evaluate or give them an answer. Just read and translate what the English words are to math language. Now remember, we always begin with the base. Well, in problem A, our base is the number 6. Cubed means I have the superscript of 3. Base comes first. That's the bigger number. And the cube, or the words after, are the superscript. Okay? Now let's take a look at B. Well, here's our base. So we're going to write our base, which is W to the 7th power. Look at C. Here's our base. That's the number 8 squared. And then we have, here's our base. That is 2 to the 5th power. Okay, translating very nicely. Now, we're going to talk about another property. And this property, you got to be real careful with this, because this is saying distributive property. You're going to have 3 terms. The variables are A, B, C, but they can be numbers as well as variables. But here's the catch. The distributive property can only be used when inside the parentheses. Now notice what I said. Inside the parentheses, we have a plus or a minus. And distributive means A over addition or subtraction, which means inside the parentheses you have a plus that separates 2 of the 3 terms. One is sitting out in front of the parentheses. Well, remember, if you sit out in front of the parentheses, means you're multiplying. And then, here we go. If I take this A and I distribute, that means I multiply. When I multiply, I put 2 letters back to back. Then here comes my plus sign. Then A multiplies by C, which is right here. Distributive means the number out in front is multiplying by the first number in the parentheses, followed by the sign inside of the parentheses. And then we go back again, and the number out in front of the parentheses multiplies by the number behind the plus sign. And the same thing happens when you have a minus. This A multiplies by B. This sign comes over, and then A multiplies by C. Now be real careful here, because they are now going to give you some old stuff with new stuff, and that's Pearson. If you're given A parentheses B, C, now notice inside the parentheses there is no plus or minus. There is no plus or minus inside. That means you're multiplying all of the terms together. This is also another way of saying A, B. Now they're going to put a dot here, followed by C. Well, this dot is not a plus or a minus sign. You're still going to get A times B times C. So be very careful. In one section earlier, you had A times B times C. But that's not the distributive property. Do not add a plus or a minus when it's not there. Now, we're going to do a couple of examples. Now, I want you to be careful. This is saying simplify, okay? Well, what this means is this 4 is going to multiply by x. Okay, well, that's going to give us 4 with an x. Now, this plus sign comes here. But then we're going to take that 4 and we're going to multiply by 3 to give me 12. Now, notice these terms are not the same. One has a variable and one does not have a variable. So you cannot simplify. Okay. This has got 4 with an x behind it. Then we have the 12. Okay. So be real careful. Now, just like this, I have a 6 times an x. Well, I got a minus in the middle, so this will give me 6x. Here comes the minus sign. Now, 5 is multiplying by, or 6 is multiplying by 5, which is giving me 30. This cannot be simplified. One has a variable, one does not. But wait till we get to the next slide. Okay, they're making the problem a little longer, but there's more to it. Okay, this 3 is in front of a parentheses. So we're going to do that first, right in this yellow area. This means that this 3 multiplies by x. This plus sign comes right here. And this 3 multiplies by 2. That's 6. That ends the parentheses. But notice what I have back here. Plus 5. These two numbers are going to go together. This is when you simplify. This will be 3x plus 11, because the two numbers I can add together. Now my next slide, hopefully you're going to notice the difference. Okay, now notice the difference between these two expressions. And I want to show you real carefully. Notice right here, I got a dot. Notice right here, I got a plus. Okay. This first problem does not use the distributive property because it's got a dot multiply, which means I'm going to take the 2 times the 3, which is going to give me 6, and then I put the x right behind it. I'm not putting a plus between the 6 and the x. This is not a plus to put in. But this one, this problem uses 1. This problem uses the distributive property because inside the parentheses there is a plus. And I'm going to also write minus sign here. Which means I'm distributing. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 times x is 2x. This plus sign is the one I have between the two terms in the parentheses. Okay. Now, we've got about 8 more slides and we're done. Yay! Now, this one is known as the order of operations. Now, some of you may think you know it very well, but there's a problem. There's 3 bold words in step number 3 and number 4 that you do not always remember. Okay? Order of operations, as we know, is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Not a problem. But step number 1, you're going to do what's inside the parentheses or grouping symbols. Now, I want to let you know that parentheses has several different rules. We can have this parentheses. We can have what we call the brackets. And then we're going to have these braces. These are grouping symbols. And you work inside out with grouping symbols. You work inside out. Parentheses, brackets, braces. Huh? Let's see if I can kind of get this a little better here. Get this to do what I want. Oh, I almost had it. Let's see here. Or how about if I just do it this way? I'm going to put this right here, and then I'm going to make the symbols a little smaller. It's this symbol, braces, brackets. You always start inside and move outward. Okay. Now, you're going to then simplify. Okay. Simplify any terms with exponents and radicals next. Okay. So that means the P is our first step. The E is our second step. Now, these are the 2 steps that people have trouble with. multiply or divide from left to right, whichever comes first. These words are the ones that cause people trouble. Whichever comes first. You forget that little detail. And the last step, you are not adding anything at the beginning. Never add or subtract. You add or subtract at the end. See, it's way down here. But again, from left to right, whichever comes first. These three bold words aren't always drained in your or planted in your brain when you learn, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. But it's going to matter here. Now, we're going to do these last couple of slides together. And I want you to know that we're going to do it step by step. Okay? Now, the first problem we're going to do, you are going to find that it occasionally will say simplify using order of operations, or it will say evaluate using order of operations. You're going to have to be careful what they have. Now, I want to show you something. If you wish to use this, this helps a whole lot. This is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now, using this, what we call acronym, I go through starting with the capital P and look and see, do I have any parentheses? Well, sure enough, there's no parentheses, so I'm going to cross that out. Now, exponents. Okay. My exponent is right here. That is what I'm doing first, which means I get 36. 6 times 2. Remember repeated multiplication? That little superscript 2 says I have 2 6s. Then I have this lovely symbol. Then I have this times this plus this. Now, do I have any more exponents? No. Now, this is where you have to be careful. Multiply or divide from left to right, whichever comes first. Now, this is where you're going to find that we're going to put these two together first. It's divide, but it came before that little multiplication symbol, which means that I am now going to have 6. These two have to go together first. See that little word? Or, whichever comes first. Well, this is 6. Then it's times 2 plus 3. Do I have a multiply or divide? Yes, right here. I divide before I multiply. And I do that because of this little word, or whichever comes first. This is going to give me 12 plus 1. Now, the last thing that I have to do is add or subtract. Well, what's this little thing telling me? 12 plus 1 is 13. This is my answer. Now, if you get anything but 13, I hate to tell you, you did it wrong. You forgot those 3 little words, whichever comes first. Now, let's try it again. Okay, right here. I have P, excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Okay. Well, first off, this time I have a parentheses. That's right here. Well, I also have an exponent inside that parentheses, but I still have to do that first. This is going to be 16 minus 13, because that little 2 is telling me I'm multiplying 4 twice. So that means I have 4 plus. Now I still have to keep what's inside the parentheses together, but 16 minus 13 is the number 3. This little 4 on the outside, minus 3. Number 3, this little 4 on the outside, minus 3. This parentheses was 16 minus 13. And because I had this lovely little number up here, I had to put these together first. Now, this is your choice. We are going to do exponents. That's this little 4. Now, taking just this piece, notice what I do. This is 4 plus. Now, right here, I am going to write parentheses 3, parentheses 3, parentheses 3, parentheses 3, minus 4. This is repeated multiplication, which means I now have to multiply all of those together. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times 3 is 81. When I put all of these together, I have 4 plus 81 minus 4. Okay. Now, if you look at this line, I don't have any multiply or divide. But notice, add or subtract. I'm going to put these together, which is going to be 85 minus 4. And the last thing I'm going to do is subtract. Now, some of you may have gotten 81 by taking this 4 and subtracting them. Well, technically, you didn't follow the order of operations correctly. Now, you still got 81, which means you got the right answer, but the wrong way to do it. You want to get 4 plus 81 first, which is 85, then subtract 4. Now, you're going to say, well, why does it matter? Well, first off, we're talking about whole numbers. As we go further down the book, you can have positive and negative numbers. You've got to be careful about that, because order of operations, learn correctly the first chapter. Because as we go further, does it make a difference? Oh, yeah. And you don't understand what you did wrong. So follow exactly what's in this column. Now, we're going to do this problem. Now, this problem, I want you to know, is 3 problems in one. Okay, why is it 3 problems in one? Well, first off, you got to do what's up here first. Then you have to do what's down here second, and then you got to do what this line means. So there are 3 problems in one. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we know it's a fraction. Okay? So we're going to put this nice little line right here. That's my fraction line. Okay, that's right here. Now, we're going to, over here, do the numerator. Now, some of you may be able to do this in your head, which is fine. You can do it in your head. This is going to give me the answer I'm going to put up here. Well, this is 4 plus 2, which is 6. 6 is going up here. Now, we have to do what comes next. Well, what comes next is our second part of the 3-part process. We have to do what's here. Now, this again is 30 divided by 15 times 2. Now remember, this is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Multiply or divide, which means I have to divide first. This is going to give me the number 2 times 2, which means that down here, if you do it correctly, is going to give me the number 4. This gray number is not 1. And some of you are going to think that's what it is. Remember, it's multiply or divide, whichever comes first. 30 divided by 15 is this 2. Now, your book believes that you know how to reduce fractions. Well, this is 6 over 4. Well, 6 over 4 has got to be reduced. And we're going to divide by 2, which is 3 over 2. This is my answer. Now, notice this did not ask you for a decimal. Notice this problem in the instructions does not ask for a decimal. Do not give a decimal answer. Because if it doesn't ask for a decimal, you got to keep it as a fraction. Now, they're believing that you know how to reduce this. They're both even numbers. You're dividing by 2. Now, this is some old stuff with some new stuff. Okay? This answer is not the number 6. And some of you are going to get 6. Not the correct answer. Now, this is the last one, but I want you to understand this. And notice, there is no parentheses to help you. And these are the ones I really like, because if you know order of operations, which is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. You're going to get this right. Because notice, there is no parentheses. There is no exponents. Okay, be careful of this. Multiply or divide. Well, that means or divide. Well, that means right here, we're starting off left to right. These two numbers are going together first. This will give me 12 minus 4 times 2 plus 12 minus 4 times 2. Well, what comes next? Well, what comes next are these two terms. Okay, do not take 12 and subtract 4. We're still right here. Multiply or divide. This will give me 12. Now the minus sign is still here. 4 times 2 is our green product of 8 plus 12 minus 4 times 2. Well, again, notice, do we have any more multiply stuff? Oh, yes, we do. Way over here. Way over here. Well, this is going to give us 12 minus 8 plus 12 minus 8. Now, we're done with multiplying and dividing. But again, add or subtract from left to right, whichever comes first. These two are going to go. This is 4 plus 12 minus 8. These two, 16 minus 8. And 16 minus 8 gives us the wonderful answer of 8. If you do any of these steps differently, you won't get the right answer. You need to follow the order of operations, especially when there is no parentheses. Now, we got a couple more slides, and the next one is to translate. Okay, this says 3 times a number, okay, plus 4. Now, notice a, 3 times a number. Well, that's translated as 3 with a variable. This phrase is right here. Plus 4. Now notice I highlighted the little a, because that makes a difference when we go to B. Now, this is where you have to watch out. In mathematics, the article, if you're an English major, you know the article is A in problem A, but in B, it's the. Okay. When you have two mathematical operations back to back with the word the, you have a parentheses. You have a parentheses. That's what this problem is. Now, 5 times is going to be 5, but the word the creates a parentheses. Now, sum is plus a number and 4. That the indicates you have a parentheses. An A number, no parentheses. The is different because notice we have 2 mathematical operations. We have the word times and we have the word sum. If you look at A, we just have the word times a number. There's not 2 mathematical operations. That's what you have to watch out for. And the last one is talking about division. Now, this is where you have to recognize the phrase, the quotient of 35. And see that little word and? The quotient of and the word and means I have a fraction. What's right here before the word and is 35 plus a number. And the word 4. Okay. The quotient of, find that and, because after the and is your denominator. Everything between that I've circled in black is the numerator. 35 plus a number. So if you have trouble with this, practice. Now the last 2 slides are going to be some really interesting parts because now we're going to evaluate expressions. And I have a little more steps for you, but I changed the number 3 because it's going to matter. This problem, as you know, has 3 parts to it. This problem has 3 parts to it. You have the numerator to do, you have the denominator to do, and in this case, not too much of the denominator, but it does happen. Okay. Now, here, let's do it in steps. We are going to replace each variable. Well, there's only one variable, and that's up in the numerator. And because they put 3a plus 4 in parentheses, technically we can take them off of the parentheses. We could write 3 here plus 4. Our A is 7, which means right inside there, I'm going to write a 7. This is our first step. We do the numerator first, which means 3 next to a parentheses means multiply. 3 times 7 is 21 plus 4. Okay, this is going to give us the number 25. Now, the denominator only has one number. That's 5. Okay, so to finish this problem, 25, with that bar in the middle means divide. Okay. That is going to equal our lovely number of 5. Because this symbol means divide. Okay. Sometimes you have a whole lot of stuff in the numerator, and sometimes you're going to have a whole lot of stuff in the denominator. We got lucky here. We only had one number in the denominator. Okay, so all I had to do was rewrite the denominator, but I have to finish because I want to evaluate. Okay, because I want to evaluate. Okay, so to help you, first do the numerator. Second, do the denominator. And thirdly, divide. But remember, you do not want to give a decimal. 5's not a decimal. So we write the number 5. Now, this one's going to have more than one letter, and this is our last slide. We happen to have an X, a Y. And you're going to notice over here that I happen to have X has got a number and Y has got a number. Okay? So, let's do what step number 1 says. Replace each variable with a parentheses, which means I'm going to write 4. Now that X gets a parentheses behind it. Plus 4. The Y gets a parentheses behind it. Plus 3. Now, this is my X. I'm going to put a 2 in here. And this is my Y that goes right here. Now, multiply, okay, because we're using the order of operations to simplify. Because remember, it can say evaluate or it can say simplify. This is 8 plus 4 parentheses 7 plus 3. This goes next. 4 next to a parentheses means multiply, which is 8 plus 28 plus 3. Add 36 plus 3 is 39. This ends sections 1.6 and 1.7. Enjoy your homework.